Today we're going to talk about inner record sleeves. As you may have noticed these days, there's a huge variety of them, and some are good, some are not so good, and some are really downright bad. I'm going to start off. These are a couple of inner sleeves that I've gotten recently in records that I've bought. And like this is a low density polyethylene sleeve. This is really bad for a record. Back in the 50s and even going into the 60s, records came packed in sleeves of that nature, and the plastic can actually adhere to the surface of the record and disfigure it, and they're really nasty and not a good product at all. So if you ever see those, you need to get rid of them right away. Another one I've gotten recently is this, which is more of a high density polyethylene, which I'll be getting into a little bit later. However, this one's got a pink color, so I really wasn't too impressed with this one either. Probably the most common sleeve that you'll see are just plain paper sleeves. And the upside of these is that they're cheap, but that's about as far as you can go with them. As you can see, they're thin paper, and I accidentally just tore it a little bit. Because they're open here, they really won't keep your record clean, and because it's just plain paper on the inside, dirt and materials can actually stick to the paper, and then when you're sliding your record in and out, you're scratching your record. So these are really not good. So if you buy a record with these, you really ought to replace any of this type of sleeve. Another very popular sleeve are paper sleeves with a high density polyethylene lining. These are pretty common with some of the audiophile reissues that are out these days. These are a lot better. I'm still not crazy about them. Some of the drawbacks are you're still dealing with paper. The high density lining is just glued in, and it's very thin, so oftentimes that glue will let go, and then the whole inner protective part actually comes out, and it becomes pretty worthless. Because they're just paper, they can also split along the sides very easily. They're not inexpensive. They're probably about the most expensive record sleeve you can find. So I just wanted to cover that. Also, with paper sleeves, the edges of the paper, if you're not being careful, can actually mark up your record. You probably can't see it on the video, but that's putting very light superficial marks on your record, which of course you never want. So now we're going to get into some other sleeves that are a little bit better for protecting your records. Here we have a high density polyethylene record sleeve. This is our 2.0 Disc Keeper Inner, and as I said, it's made from a high density polyethylene. And why that's good and why you see it on so many record sleeves is because the high density polyethylene is a very smooth finish. So there's very little friction taking records in and out of the sleeve or sliding the record in and out of the jacket. And friction is where static comes from. So when you see record sleeves being anti-static, that does not mean that the record sleeve will never have static in it or that it will discharge static in your record sleeve. That won't happen. What it will do is provide a very smooth finish to reduce friction, to lower any static charge that could be present in the record or in the sleeve. If you do have static, use a Milty Zero Stat. You can use our Thunderon brush and get rid of the static that way. These sleeves have a number of advantages. Because they're plastic, they're strong, so they won't split along the edges. They're really quite inexpensive, and they'll do a decent job protecting your record. This is far and away our best-selling record sleeve. This is, again, the 2.0 Disc Keeper Inner. Next up is another high-density polyethylene sleeve. This one has a round bottom. We call this our Disc Keeper 1.5 mil round bottom sleeve. Round bottom sleeves originally were developed in Japan. You find them very often in Japanese imports. They had the same basic properties as the 2.0 inner sleeve. So they have the high density polyethylene, So they'll protect your record, they'll keep the static down. One of the advantages to this design is it's fairly compact. So if you have some really old jackets that have real tight fits, this is a real good sleeve to use. Once again, I'm showing you this one with this horrible plastic junk there. And if you use a sleeve like this, and I measured it, this jacket is smaller than a standard size jacket. You can just slide it right in. You don't have to worry about the corners folding up in the back. And even on really old records, these sleeves will fit very nicely. Also, there's another good use for these. Again, with very old records, if you're into collecting old classical records, there were some that came with dowel sleeves. Now, obviously, you can't replace a dowel sleeve. In this particular case, it's not a very good lining there. It's low-density polyethylene. However, you can take a sleeve like this, insert it into your dowel sleeve, like so, and then put it back in the jacket. There's not many sleeves where you'd be able to do that because it won't fit properly. So that's the 1.5 mil round bottom sleeve. This is what's known in the industry as a rice paper sleeve. I'm not quite sure how they came to be called rice paper sleeves. They're not made out of rice paper. The only time I've seen anything like a rice paper is on certain old mono classical type recordings from the 50s. This sleeve, and there are many varieties of it, this just happens to be ours, has high density polyethylene here, and then on the back side there's 2 layers of high density polyethylene with a paper layer in between. So once again, you have the high density polyethylene, which will help keep static down. It'll protect your records real well. These also came out of Japan. I think Dishwasher was the first one where you started seeing them in this country, although I've seen sleeves of this design on Japanese records going back to the early 70s. One potential drawback, as you can see, is you can't see the back side of the label. Another potential drawback is this front side doesn't offer a whole lot of protection because this front layer happens to be quite thin. But overall, these are very good sleeves, whether it's these or any of the other varieties, and it's a good way to protect your records. This is our double RPS, or double rice paper sleeve, and it's the exact same as our NRPS, our rice paper sleeve, with one difference. It holds 2 records. It slides right into the back. So this is the front of the sleeve. That's the back of the sleeve with the second record in it. It's got the same pluses and drawbacks as regular rice paper sleeves, in that you can't see the back side of the labels. And the outer layers are a little bit thin if that bothers you. But this is one of the only audiophile quality sleeves that will hold 2 LPs, and you do occasionally buy double LPs where both records are in the same slot in the jacket. This is a nice way to save some space and to make it a little bit easier to get to the records. Also, if you have a double LP where they're separate, if you want to put them both in one sleeve, it just makes it a lot easier to access both records. You don't have to fumble back and forth the sleeves. And the double rice paper sleeve. This sleeve is what we call our ultimate audiophile inner sleeve. The item code is 312 LPS. It's the same design as the rice paper sleeves. However, you have the paper layering on both sides. You can see both sides of the label. You have the thickness of triple layers on both sides. This is the best record sleeve you can buy anywhere, and I'm proud to say we're the only ones who manufacture a sleeve like this. One good thing about all these plastic sleeves, I don't know if you've experienced this, but records often come in these paper sleeves, even with poly lining, and when you're going in and out, they're sticky. And with any sort of these plastic sleeves, you don't run into that. They slide in and out much easier. The only potential drawback with a sleeve like this is on some very, very old jackets. They're a little bit bulky and a little bit too large, which I'll show you with this jacket. You can see there's maybe 1/8 of an inch showing. I mean, the record is completely inside the jacket, but that doesn't look real good. That's not a real good fit. So if you're looking for inner sleeves for real old records, I'm trying to see if there's a date on this. I'm going to guess it's late 50s. You might want to go with something like the round bottom sleeve or even the 9235 to 2.0 inner sleeve. But for the best of protection, this is the way to go. Thanks a lot.